So I was browsing over the internet the other day and I found this absolutely hypnotizing GIF. Turns out this was made in one of my favorite AI tools, Scenario. So I thought that would be the perfect topic for a video. And in fact, I reached out to them and they even sponsored this video. Now, before you click away, there's a reason why this works out really well in Scenario, and they have a relatively generous free tier. What's more, there are a lot of techniques that we're going to go through that can be used in Comfy UI and Automatic 1111, and I'll even try and translate a few of them at the end of the video. If you are interested in trying out Scenario, I have a link in the description below. And without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first thing you're going to do when you arrive at scenario.com is you're going to sign up. And it's going to ask you for your email. I'm already logged in, but once you get your login email, this is where you'll end up. Now, one of the really cool things that I love about Scenario is how easy it allows you to blend and combine models. Now, I know we can do this in Comfy UI, but what makes Scenario especially powerful, particularly if you're using AI in a professional environment or you're an artist and you want to keep reusing parameters and settings, is not only can you save the LoRa combinations that you make, but if we go in, we can actually predefine prompt embed. So if there's any trigger words that this particular LoRa uses, you can set them up here, as well as any prompts that work particularly well for this model. The other really powerful thing about Scenario is its canvas tool. And this is a built-in editor that allows us to make changes in Paint and update images on the fly. And this is what we're going to cover today. Now, you'll notice here I have a few models already set up. So if you're not happy with some of the platform provided models, or there's just one from Civit AI that you particularly love and want to use, now you can bring it into Scenario. So to do that, you head into models, and at the moment, the feature only allows for LoRa's. So go ahead and filter out LoRa's, SDXL 1.0, and then scroll through and pick out some models that you like. They could be character LoRa's or they could be style LoRa's. Personally, I typically grab style LoRa's. I like to create a lot of anime images, and that's kind of what I go for. So once you see a LoRa that you like, go ahead and jump into it, download it. And over here in Scenario, you can go ahead and click New Model and upload it. Go ahead and drag it over and upload it. And it should take a few minutes to upload depending on how big the LoRa is, but they need a little bit of time to process it. So it's a great time to, have a cup of coffee. Once you're done enjoying your coffee and you've received the email that your LoRa is ready to go, or LoRa's if you're like me and you uploaded like 50, you will find the models all laid out here. Now, depending on how the file name was downloaded, you may need to go in and do a bit of cleanup. So what I typically like to do is I'll go in, rename the model, and select or upload a couple of thumbnails. So you can download the thumbnails from Civit, upload them here, and this is really useful because when you're in the model screen, you can kind of get an idea of what the model is capable of with the thumbnails. I like to grab a couple of different images so that when I go in, I can see the different art styles that the model is capable of. If you do have the credits, however, I do recommend actually generating a couple of images with the model in Scenario, because this LoRa is being applied on top of SDXL. And as you might know, in Civit AI, a lot of the times the LoRa's or the images that are provided for the LoRa's are based on a fine-tuned checkpoint of SDXL, and so it may not perform as well with the base model. In my case, all of these thumbnails that I've provided are based on the LoRa running on SDXL here in Scenario. Now let's get to the really fun part. Go ahead and jump into New Model and compose with precision. And what we can do here is we can grab your LoRa's or our LoRa's and grab a couple of models that you think might work well together. So I'm gonna grab this one up here. Let's grab this modern cartoon aesthetic, and let's grab this Holopunk XL. Since all of them have very clear lines and features, I'm quite excited to see what type of images that we'll get. Now, before saving this combination of LoRa's, you can actually test it out and see what the images are like and adjust the weights of each LoRa based on whether you think one should have more strength or the other. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's throw in something akin to what we've got here, which is the characters leaning forwards on the hands, and it's a portrait. So women leaning on hands, and then we can add in a few helper elements, 4K, and let's see what we get with a 0.55 weight for each of the LoRa's. Now, here we're just testing out the model. We're not really going to dive too deeply into the composition. We just kind of want to see what the art style is like with a few basic words. Great, and after a little waiting, it generated a couple of images for us in what I think is a pretty cool art style. I just want to bring out a little bit more of that anime vibe, so we're gonna crank up Holopunk just a tiny bit and see where that takes us. So after a few minutes of messing around, we have an art style that I kind of like. I ended up with 065, 045, and 070 for the LoRa weights. I added in comic style, and I think this will produce some pretty interesting results. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with this. Now, one of the issues that you might notice is in this particular instance, the character is leaning on the hands, everything seems to be very well defined, and in our case, while we do have a few images of our main character leaning on her hands, most of the renders are absolutely horrible. So we're going to lend the model a little bit of help with ControlNet to try and get the look that we're going for. So let's go ahead and close this out, give our composition a name. Let's give it the absolutely original name of Comic Style 1. If anybody has any suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and save the composition. Now we're actually ready to generate with this model. So I copied the prompt over from before, knowing that I was going to use this art style, and we're going to drop it in here and generate a new batch of images. Now, once again, as you can see in the images, we have that same issue where the hands are not really being generated properly, and furthermore, the model is not really looking at us straight in the center of the camera the way that we want. So we're going to help that out with a ControlNet. Now, I use a fantastic tool called Pose My Art. I have a video tutorial on this coming soon, but essentially what this tool allows you to do is to grab a 3D model and actually pose things out the way that you want in a 3D space. And this is really fantastic because all of the joints more or less follow a human rotation, so you don't have to run the risk of things getting too out of proportion. And you can modify things by editing these kind of levers, or you can just grab the body part and move it to where you want to. It's a lot easier than trying to do it manually through other tools. And you see, within just a few minutes, we now have the hand on the face. Now, fortunately, I had prepared an image earlier that we can use, and we'll upload that here in the reference image. Now, because Scenario has its own built-in preprocessors, I've actually just uploaded the reference image as is. We're going to grab here ControlNet, and we're going to tell it to use character. I found that this works very well for this type of project that we're trying to do, but they've also got landscape structure, which is canny, pose, which is open pose, depth, which is a depth map, and so on and so forth. So let's start by leaving it at 100% influence, throwing in the reference image, and generating, and see what we get. Effectively, what we're looking for at this point is a base image for us to iterate in the canvas. Don't be like me and don't run a second set of generations before you've actually fine-tuned your ControlNet. So this is probably happening because the influence is a little bit too high. So we're going to go ahead and drop that down to about 75 and see what we get there. Okay, well, the good news is we have the hands leaning on the face the way that we want it. However, we're still deviating way too much from our initial art style. So let's bring this down to 50% influence. If you guys watched my last video on Toon Crafter, you guys will know that this is par for the course. I test this off camera on my own, works brilliantly. I recommend it to you guys on camera, and of course things don't work. This is the joy of redoing things from scratch when you're doing it for the camera. So you guys are seeing me troubleshoot this live. What I've done is I have run a bunch of generations testing it on different strengths using the character ControlNet. I then tried open pose, and then I tried the structure or canny one. So if we look through the images, this one here is kind of the closest that we got, and I think this was at 33 or 30% strength with character influence. This one is canny at 20%. So we could try with that. Since we've already got canny running, let's bring back open pose and crank that up to about 35%. Okay, so since ControlNet is not behaving, we're going to try a different approach to achieve the desired look. So let's start by grabbing an image that we like where we have the character facing us, more or less what we want from the face. I like this one, so we're going to go ahead and try this one out. Now, one of the cool things that Scenario has is if you are using a ControlNet, is when you select an image, it will show you the image overlaid on ControlNet so that you can compare what the final image output was with your ControlNet. In this case, because we have the strength running quite low, we're not really getting a very close result. Influence is very minor, but that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and work with this. So once you've selected an image that you like, go ahead and click these three dots up here and edit in Canvas. Now this is where the fun really starts. So to get to where we wanna go, we're first going to duplicate the layer, just so that we have it saved for use later. Let's go ahead and hide that. And then we're going to create a new empty layer. And what we're going to do on this layer is we're actually going to grab here the sketch feature and sketch out very, very loosely some of the features that we want. So the first thing I want to do right now is I actually want to get rid of the hands. So go ahead and grab the pencil with a black dot, and we're just gonna sketch out the neck right there. And right there. Then we're gonna grab a skin tone like color. Unfortunately, they don't have a pipette, which is a bit annoying. But as long as we have an approximation, we should be good to go. Now the reason that we're doing this is because the hands are not behaving, we're gonna put them on their own layer and generate them separately. And that will give us a little bit more control over what we're trying to achieve. So we've done that. Let's grab white for the shirt. So once we've grabbed this area, we're gonna inpaint it, and then we'll try and do the hands and hair separately. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, so we may need to do another run and actually try to do the hair at once, but we're trying to do it one component at a time. Okay, so once we've masked out that area, go ahead and grab this tool over here, which is the Inpainting Tool. And this is going to create a inpainting layer above what we've just drawn. Now again, go ahead and select this quite freely. You can even feel free to grab the hands and see what it does. And so you understand what's happening is this blue bounding box is what the inpainting is going to use as a reference. So it's going to inpaint whatever we are highlighting and use whatever's in the blue box as kind of reference to try and figure out what it is that we're trying to inpaint around. And because we don't want the hand, we're gonna just try and grab the hand. Like I said, we don't want any hand components, but we're not going to tell it to do much with the hair. Okay, so you can see here we have the base image, we've got the sketch layer, and then we've got the inpainted mask on top. I'm going to remove leaning on hands because we don't want that anymore. And let's just generate it with the existing prompt and see what we get. Likely we will have to add in some specifics of what we're trying to do, but let's start by seeing what the AI does for us. Okay, so the good news is we got rid of the hands, but it only inpainted the hair. It left the stuff that we sketched on there, but again, like I said, this is a really good place to start. So I quite like this one because it gives us the least amount of inpainted area. So we'll go ahead and grab that, and we'll do a second pass on the inpainting. This time, however, since we have hair where the hands used to be, we're not going to inpaint that. So let's do the inpainting again. And this time we're going to grab a tiny bit less and actually grab the black lines this time. And this time, let's actually add in clothes. So after a few repeated attempts, the AI is continuing to insist on not manipulating the sketched out area. So in the event of that happening, what you can do is come down here to the reference mode, image to image, and drop the influence down by a few digits. We're going to bring it down to 10 and see if that solves it for us. Okay, fantastic. So we got it working. Just so you guys know, what I had to do to fix this up is the image that we had earlier that we inpainted, I went and merged it with the copy that we had made earlier, and that allowed me to inpaint the entire body area. In doing so, we were able to generate some new images where we now have her wearing a kind of turtleneck with a shirt or jacket on top, something similar with a t-shirt, and then a couple here with some sleeveless tops. So we're actually going to go ahead and grab 3 of them because they came out pretty well, and we can use them all in our final generation. So if we select them all, it will actually add them all as layers for us. And again, I know I'm going on about how much I love Scenario. It's just little things like these that make my life a lot easier. And that's it for part 1 of our tutorial. If you found it helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay notified of new videos. If you really want to make sure that you find out about when part 2 is out, please subscribe to our newsletter. We'll be sending out an email update when part 2 of this tutorial is available, and we'll be giving away some scenario credits to some of our lucky newsletter subscribers, so don't miss out on it. I also want to invite you to come by our Discord and check it out. It's a great place to come by and ask questions, drop some of your artwork, and even participate in giveaways. And lastly, do you find this format annoying? Would you have rather have had a 1 hour long tutorial video, or do you like having it broken up into 15 to 20 minute segments? This is information that is really valuable to me, and I'd love to know. Please comment down below and let me know if you have any questions regarding how to use scenario or any of the techniques that we've discussed today. Thanks, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.